The ship was dying. Captain Zarathol could feel it in every vibration that ran through the metal floor beneath her feet. The Harmony's light had carried her people across 3 star systems, but now its engines were failing and the hull was cracked in 12 places. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the bridge where the last of her crew worked at damaged control panels. "Captain, we're losing power to the life support systems," reported her chief engineer, Veltar. His blue skin had turned pale with exhaustion. Like all the others aboard the ship, he had not slept properly in weeks. "We have maybe 6 hours before the air recyclers shut down completely." Irithol nodded slowly. She had expected this news. The Harmony's light was not built for war, and it had taken too much damage during their escape from the Vorthic attack on their homeworld. 50,000 Kethany refugees were crammed into cargo holds and converted storage spaces throughout. The ship, they had fled with nothing but their lives and the genetic records of their entire species. "What about the navigation system?" she asked. "Still working, but barely," answered Navigator Kethmo from his station. "I'm detecting an inhabited system ahead. 1 star, several planets. The 3rd planet shows signs of a technological civilization." Zarathol moved to the main display screen. The image showed a small yellow star with 9 planets orbiting around it. The 3rd planet was blue and green, covered with oceans and continents. It looked peaceful, beautiful, even. "What do we know about the inhabitants?" she asked. Kethmo pressed several buttons on his console. "They're called humans. Bipedal, like us, but with no telepathic abilities that I can detect. They've achieved faster-than-light travel, but their technology is still developing. They have a unified planetary government and several colony worlds." "Are they members of the Galactic Council?" "No, Captain. They appear to be an independent species. I'm not finding any records of them in our databases." Zarathol closed her eyes and tried to think. The Kethany had always been peaceful traders and healers. They had never built warships or trained soldiers. When the Vorthic Empire began its expansion across their sector of the galaxy, the Kethany Council had tried diplomacy first, then surrender when that failed. Neither approach had saved them. The Vorthic did not want prisoners or slaves. They wanted empty worlds to colonize, and they killed every native species that stood in their way. The Kethany homeworld was now nothing but ash and radiation. 17 colony worlds had suffered the same fate. The refugees aboard the Harmony's light were all that remained of a civilization that had existed for over 10,000 years. "Captain," Veltar called from his station, "I'm reading massive structural damage to the port engine assembly. If we try to jump to faster-than-light speed again, the ship will break apart." "Then we don't jump," Zarathol said quietly. "We ask for help." Her crew looked at her with surprise. The Kethany had asked for help before. They had sent messages to the Galactic Council, to their old trading partners, to anyone who might listen. No one had answered. No one wanted to fight the Vorthic Empire. "Captain, these humans are a primitive species," Kethmo said carefully. "What could they possibly do for us?" "They can give us sanctuary," Zarathol replied. "A place for our people to live while we figure out what comes next." She walked to the communication station and activated the emergency broadcast system. The message would be transmitted on all frequencies, in the universal trade language that most spacefaring species understood. "This is Captain Zarathil of the Kethany vessel Harmony's Light," she began. "We are refugees carrying the last survivors of our species. Our homeworld and colonies have been destroyed by the Vorthic Empire. We are requesting humanitarian assistance and safe passage. We have 50,000 civilians aboard this ship, including children and elderly. Our life support systems are failing, and we cannot repair our engines." She paused, looking around at her crew. They were brave people who had risked everything to save their species from extinction. "We do not ask for military aid or weapons," she continued. "We ask only for a place where our people can live in peace. We have medical knowledge and biotechnology that we would be happy to share in exchange for sanctuary. Please respond if you are willing to help us." Zarathal ended the transmission and sat down in her command chair. Now they would wait and see if these humans were like the other species in the galaxy, too afraid of the Vorthic to help anyone. The message traveled through space at the speed of light toward the blue-green planet. On Earth, it was intercepted by deep space monitoring stations and immediately forwarded to Terra Defense Command headquarters. Admiral Jake Morrison was reviewing fleet deployment reports when his aide, Lieutenant Barnes, burst into his office without knocking. "Sir, you need to see this immediately," Barnes said. Holding out a data tablet, Morrison took the tablet and read the message. His face grew serious as he absorbed the details. 50,000 refugees, an entire species nearly extinct, an enemy called the Vorthic Empire that killed entire civilizations. "How long ago was this transmitted?" Morrison asked. 18 minutes, sir. The signal originated from the edge of our solar system. Morrison stood up and walked to his office window. Outside, he could see the orbital shipyards where the newest vessels of the Terran Defense Fleet were under construction. Humanity had recently emerged from the colonial wars, conflicts between Earth and the outer colonies that had tested every aspect of their military capabilities. They had ships, weapons, and most importantly, they had learned how to fight. "Get me President Carter on the secure line," Morrison ordered, "and contact the Science Division. I want to know everything we can find out about these Kethany and this Vorthic Empire." "Yes, sir," Barnes replied, already reaching for his communicator dot as his aide left the office. Morrison looked back at the message on the tablet. These aliens were asking for help, not demanding it. They were offering to share their knowledge in exchange for safety. Most importantly, they were running from something that destroyed entire worlds. Morrison had spent his entire career preparing for humanity's next war. He had never expected it to start with a plea for help from strangers, but he recognized opportunity when he saw it. If the Vorthic Empire was expanding toward human space, it was better to learn about them now than wait for them to arrive uninvited. He picked up his secure phone and waited for the president to answer. This conversation would change everything for both species, though neither the Kethany nor the humans fully understood that yet. President Lisa Carter had been in emergency meetings before, but nothing like this. The White House Situation Room was packed with advisors, military commanders, and scientists. Everyone was talking at once until she raised her hand for silence. "Admiral Morrison, give me the facts," she said. Morrison stood and activated the main display screen. It showed the alien ship's location and the damage reports their sensors had detected. "The Kethany vessel is barely holding together," Morrison began. "Our long-range scanners confirm massive structural damage. They're telling the truth about their life support failing. We estimate they have maybe 4 hours before people start dying." Defense Secretary Ryan Collins leaned forward. "Madam President, we need to be careful here. We don't know anything about these aliens or this Vorthic Empire they mentioned. This could be a trap involving 50,000 refugees in a dying ship?" Asked Secretary of State Kelly Adams. "That seems like an expensive way to fool us." Dr. Peter Hayes, the government's lead expert on alien biology, cleared his throat. "I've been analyzing the genetic data they transmitted along with their message. The Kethany appear to be a genuinely peaceful species. Their brain structure shows enlarged areas associated with empathy and cooperation. They're telling the truth about being refugees." Intelligence Director Sophie Martinez opened a thick folder. I've had my teams working on the information about this Vorthic Empire. Based on the data the Kethani provided, we're looking at a military force that has conquered at least 20 star systems in the past 50 years. Their expansion pattern is systematic and brutal. They don't take prisoners. President Carter studied the star map on the display. Red dots marked the worlds the Vorthic had destroyed. A clear pattern emerged showing their expansion route through space. Where are they headed? She asked. Martinez highlighted the projected path in yellow. If they continue their current expansion pattern, they'll reach human space within 8 to 12 years. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. The Vorthic Empire wasn't just the Kethani's problem. It was going to become humanity's problem, whether they help the refugees or not. What are our options? Carter asked. Admiral Morrison stepped forward. We have 3 choices. First, we can ignore the message and let the Kethani ship drift until their life support fails. Second, we can provide basic humanitarian aid and send them somewhere else. Third, we can bring them to Earth and offer them permanent sanctuary. What do you recommend, Admiral? Morrison looked around the room before answering. I recommend option 3, but not for humanitarian reasons. These Kethani have detailed intelligence about an enemy that's going to attack us eventually. They have advanced biotechnology that could improve our defensive capabilities. Most importantly, they're asking for our help instead of demanding it. That makes them natural allies. Collins shook his head. You're talking about getting involved in an interstellar war. We just finished the colonial wars. Our military is still rebuilding. Our military is experienced, Morrison corrected. We know how to fight. The Kethani know about the enemy. Together, we might actually have a chance to stop this Vorthic Empire before it reaches Earth. Dr. Hayes opened his laptop and projected new images onto the screen. The biotechnology the Kethani are offering could revolutionize our medical systems and military equipment. Their ships use living metal that can repair itself. Their weapons are grown rather than manufactured. This isn't just about helping refugees. This is about advancing human technology by centuries. President Carter stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the monuments to all the wars humanity had fought. World War III, the Resource Wars, the Colonial Wars. Each conflict had made humanity stronger, but also more careful about choosing sides. Admiral Morrison, how long would it take to mobilize our fleet if we decided to help these people? 2. Provide sanctuary? We could have rescue ships there in 6 hours. To prepare for war against the Vorthic Empire, that would take months, maybe years. Carter turned back to the room. Dr. Hayes, what's your assessment of Kethani intentions? Are they really just refugees, or could this be some kind of advanced scouting mission? Hayes pulled up biological scans on his tablet. Madam President, I've studied every piece of data they transmitted. These people are terrified, exhausted, and desperate. Half of them are children. This is not a military operation. This is a species trying to survive. General Chris Thompson, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. If we're going to help them, we need to do it right. That means not just rescuing them, but making sure they never have to run again. The Vorthic Empire needs to understand that attacking our allies means attacking us. You're talking about guaranteeing their protection, Collins said. That's a huge commitment. It's the right commitment, Thompson replied. Humanity has always been at its best when we're protecting someone who can't protect themselves. President. Carter returned to her seat. Admiral Morrison, I want you to dispatch rescue ships immediately. Bring the Kethani refugees to Earth. Give them whatever medical care they need and find them safe places to live. Yes, Madam President. Dr. Hayes, I want you to work with their scientists. Learn everything you can about their technology and share ours with them. We're going to be partners, not just protectors. Understood. Carter looked around the room at each person. General Thompson, begin preparing our military for a long-term conflict. I want production schedules for new ships, weapons, and equipment. If the Vorthic Empire wants a war, we'll give them one they won't forget. What about the other nations? Asked Secretary Adams. The European Federation, the Asian Alliance, the African Union. They'll want to be involved in this decision. Call an emergency session of the World Council, Carter ordered. But make it clear that America is committed to helping these refugees regardless of what other nations decide. As the meeting broke up and advisors rushed to carry out their orders, Admiral Morrison remained behind. Madam President, there's something else you should know, he said quietly. I've been studying human military history for 30 years. Every time we've been forced to fight, we've gotten better at it. The Vorthic Empire thinks they're dealing with another peaceful species like the Kepler. They have no idea what humanity is capable of when we're angry. Carter nodded. Let's hope they learn quickly, Admiral. Because once we commit to protecting the Kepler, there's no backing down. Morrison smiled grimly. I wouldn't have it any other way, ma'am. 3 hours later, the first human rescue ships launched from Earth toward the dying alien vessel. The crews had orders to save every Kepler life they could and to treat the refugees as honored guests rather than burdens. None of them knew they were beginning the largest military buildup in human history. The Vorthic Empire had made their first mistake when they destroyed the Kepler homeworld. They were about to make their second mistake by underestimating the species that had agreed to help the survivors. Captain Zarathul was about to discover that when humans offered help, they meant it completely. 6 months had passed since the Kepler refugees arrived on Earth. Captain Zarathul stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching hundreds of human ships move through space in perfect formation. She had never seen anything like it. Impressive, isn't it? Said Admiral Morrison as he joined her at the viewing window. I don't understand, Zarathul replied. When we asked for help, we expected maybe food and shelter. We never expected this. Below them, massive shipyards worked around the clock, building new vessels. The humans had converted their entire military production system to focus on one goal, preparing for war with the Vorthic Empire. Your people shared everything with us, Morrison explained. Your star charts, your technology, your knowledge of Vorthic tactics. We're just returning the favor. Zarathul watched a new battleship emerge from the construction bay. It was bigger than anything the Kepler had ever built, covered with weapons and armor plating. But why are you building so many ships? The Vorthic won't reach human space for years. Morrison smiled grimly. That's where you're wrong, Captain. We're not waiting for them to come to us. We're going to them. Dr. Maria Santos was working late in her laboratory when she made the breakthrough that would change everything. For months, she had been studying Kepler biotechnology with her alien partner Veltar. Tonight, they finally solved the puzzle. It works, she said, staring at the test results on her computer screen. Veltar looked over her shoulder. His blue skin was marked with excitement patterns that the humans were learning to read. The weapon systems are stable? He asked. More than stable. They're perfect. Maria turned to face him. Your biometal technology, combined with our targeting systems, creates something neither of our species could build alone. On the screen, data showed the performance of their new hybrid weapon. It could repair itself when damaged, adapt to different types of armor, and most importantly, it learned from each battle to become more effective. The Admiral will want to see this immediately, Veltar said. Already calling him, Maria replied. Reaching for her communicator. Colonel Frank Miller was having the strangest training session of his military career. Half of his soldiers were human. The other half were Kepler refugees who had volunteered to fight for their destroyed homeworld. Listen up, Miller called to the mixed group. I know this is new for everyone. Humans, you're used to fighting other humans. Kethany, you've never fought anyone. But we're going to work together, because that's how we win. Private Johnson raised his hand. Sir, how do we coordinate with soldiers who can read minds? Kethmo, one of the Kethany volunteers, spoke up. We don't read minds exactly. We sense emotions and intentions. It helps us know what you're planning without talking. That's actually useful, said Sergeant Davis. No radio chatter to give away our positions. Miller nodded. Exactly. The Kethany. Telepathic abilities make them perfect for coordinating attacks. They can sense enemy movements and warn us before we see anything. The training continued with human soldiers learning to work with Kethany partners. The aliens were physically weaker than humans, but their natural abilities made them excellent scouts and coordinators. Remember, Miller told his troops, the Vorthic have been fighting other species for decades. They think they know how galactic warfare works. They've never fought humans before. They've definitely never fought humans and Kethany working together. Captain Nina Rodriguez stood in the command center of the newest human vessel, the UES Victory. Around her, technicians installed the latest hybrid technology developed by Dr. Santos and Valtar. How are the new weapon systems? Asked Commander Blake, her second in command. Better than anything we've ever had, Rodriguez replied. The biometal armor can absorb energy weapon hits and convert the power to our own systems. The adaptive missiles learn from enemy defenses and change their attack patterns mid-flight. Blake pulled up tactical displays on his screen. The Kethany. Intelligence reports show Vorthic ships rely on energy shields and long-range weapons. They're not built for close combat. Then we get close, Rodriguez said simply. Human ships are faster and more maneuverable. We use that advantage. The command center buzzed with activity as crews prepared for their first real test against Vorthic forces. Intelligence reports showed a small Vorthic patrol fleet was approaching the outer edges of former Kethany space. All ships report ready. For departure, announced the communications officer. Rodriguez settled into her command chair. Then let's go hunting. Deep in Vorthic space, Fleet Commander Vextar received the latest reports from his scouts. The information was disturbing. You're certain about these readings? He asked his intelligence officer. Yes, Commander. The humans have built over 2,000 warships in just 6 months. Their industrial capacity far exceeds our estimates. Vextar studied the tactical displays. When the Vorthic first detected human transmissions, they had dismissed this new species as typical galactic primitives. The plan was simple. Finish conquering the remaining Kethany colonies, then deal with the humans when convenient. What about their military capabilities? Vextar asked. Unknown, Commander. They have no significant military history against other species. Their recent conflicts were internal civil wars. Then they're inexperienced, Vextar concluded, probably building ships to intimidate us into leaving them alone. The intelligence officer hesitated. There is something else, Commander. Our long-range sensors detected human ships moving toward the Kepler system. That's where we have our forward supply base. Moving toward us? Vextar was surprised. Most species waited for the Vorthic to attack them. How many ships? Approximately 50 vessels, moving in formation. Vextar laughed. 50 ships against our entire fleet? These humans are either very brave or very stupid. What are your orders, Commander? Send the 3rd battle group to intercept them. It's time these humans learned what happens when primitives challenge the Vorthic Empire. Back on Earth, President Carter reviewed the latest military reports with satisfaction. The refugee crisis had become the catalyst for the greatest military expansion in human history. Production is ahead of schedule, reported General Thompson. We'll have 3,000 ships ready for combat within the year. What about personnel? Carter asked. Recruitment is at record levels. Young people are lining up to join the military. They want to protect the Kethany refugees and defend Earth. Admiral Morrison entered the meeting room with Captain Zarathul beside him. The Kethany. Captain now wore a human military uniform with special insignia marking her as an advisor. Madam President, Morrison said, Captain Zarathul has volunteered to accompany our first strike fleet. Her knowledge of Vorthic tactics could be invaluable. Carter looked at the alien captain. Are you sure about this? You've already lost your homeworld to these people. Zarathul straightened. That's exactly why I need to go. My people died believing the Vorthic couldn't be stopped. I want to see them proven wrong. Then you'll go, Carter decided. Admiral Morrison, when do we begin active operations? Captain Rodriguez's task force launches tomorrow, Morrison replied. 50 of our best ships with full hybrid technology. If the Vorthic want a demonstration of human capabilities, we'll give them one they won't forget. Carter nodded. Make sure they understand the message, Admiral. We're not just defending ourselves. We're protecting our allies. Anyone who threatens. People under our protection threatens us. As the meeting ended, Zarathul realized that her simple plea for help had created something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans weren't just offering sanctuary to refugees. They were building an entirely new kind of military alliance based on protection rather than conquest. The Vorthic Empire was about to discover that some species don't just fight back when attacked. Some species hunt down those who hurt the innocent and make sure they never hurt anyone again. Tomorrow would begin the education of the Vorthic in the realities of human warfare. The first shots of the war were fired at exactly 1432 Earth Standard Time in the Kepler system. Captain Nina Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the UES Victory as Vorthic ships appeared on her sensors. 50 enemy vessels approaching from the asteroid belt, reported Lieutenant Walsh at the tactical station. They're in standard Vorthic battle formation. Rodriguez studied the enemy ships through the view screen. They were large, dark vessels covered in energy weapon arrays. Exactly what the Kethany intelligence reports had described. Captain Zarathul. Are those the same ship types that attacked your homeworld? Rodriguez asked. The Kethany captain nodded grimly from her position at the advisory station. Heavy cruisers and battleships. They rely on long-range energy bombardment to break enemy formations before closing for the kill. Then we don't give them that chance, Rodriguez decided. All ships execute attack pattern Delta, close to knife fighting range as fast as possible. The human fleet split into 5 groups of 10 ships each. Instead of forming a traditional battle line, they scattered across space and accelerated directly. Toward the Vorthic formation. Fleet, Commander Vextar watched the human approach with confusion. What are they doing? No species attacks us head-on like this. His tactical officer checked the sensors twice. Commander, their ships are moving much faster than our intelligence predicted. They'll reach us in 3 minutes. All ships, open fire at maximum range, Vextar ordered. Destroy them before they can get close. Purple energy beams lanced across space from the Vorthic ships. The humans had expected this. Their new biometal armor absorbed the energy and channeled it into their own power systems. Direct hits on 7 of our ships, reported Lieutenant Walsh. No damage. The biometal is working perfectly. Rodriguez smiled. Return fire. Target their weapon arrays. The human ships unleashed their own weapons. Unlike the Vorthic energy beams, human missiles were adaptive. They analyzed the enemy shields during flight and reconfigured themselves. To penetrate the defenses, the first Vorthic ship exploded in a ball of fire as human missiles tore through its armor. Then a second ship died, and a third. Impossible, breathed Vextar as he watched his ships being destroyed. Their weapons are cutting through our shields like they don't exist. Commander, they're using some kind of learning technology. His science officer reported. Each missile is more effective than the last. The human ships reached close range, and the real slaughter began. Captain Rodriguez had studied every battle report from the colonial wars. She knew that human ships were built for brutal close-quarters combat. All ships, boarding parties prepare for action, she ordered. Boarding parties? Asked Zarathul in shock. You're going to board their ships? Best way to capture their technology and interrogate their crews, Rodriguez replied calmly. Lieutenant. Commander Rachel Torres led the first boarding party as they cut through the hull of a disabled Vorthic cruiser. The enemy crew fought desperately, but they had never faced human soldiers in close combat. Move, 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 Torres shouted as her team swept through the corridors. Secure the bridge and engineering. Take prisoners when possible. The Vorthic were excellent shots with energy weapons, but humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of room-to-room fighting. Within 20 minutes, Torres had captured the entire ship. Bridge secured, she reported to Captain Rodriguez. We have 12. Vorthic prisoners and their computer systems are intact. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human boarding parties captured ship after ship. The Vorthic had expected a traditional space battle, fought at long range. Instead, they found themselves fighting humans who seemed to relish. Close Combat Fleet Commander Vextar watched his forces being systematically destroyed and captured. In 30 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. All remaining ships retreat immediately, he ordered. We need to warn High Command about these humans. But the humans weren't done. Captain Rodriguez had studied the Kethany. Intelligence reports carefully. She knew the Vorthic would try to escape and report back to their superiors. Pursuit course, she ordered. Don't let any of them reach Vorthic space. The human ships chased the fleeing Vorthic vessels across 3 star systems. Their faster engines and superior maneuverability made escape impossible. One by one, the remaining Vorthic ships were hunted down and destroyed. Only Fleet Commander Vextar's flagship managed to escape, and only because Rodriguez deliberately allowed it. Why did you let him go? Asked Commander Blake. Because he needs to tell his superiors what happened here, Rodriguez explained. The Vorthic Empire needs to understand that they're not fighting another peaceful species. They're fighting us. The Battle of Kepler ended with complete human victory. 47 Vorthic ships destroyed or captured, with 0 human losses. The prisoners were taken to secure facilities, where intelligence officers began the long process of learning everything they could about the Vorthic Empire. Dan Parker was one of the interrogation specialists assigned to question the captured Vorthic officers. He found them surprisingly willing to talk once they realized humans weren't going to kill them immediately. Your empire has conquered 20 star systems, Parker said to his prisoner, a Vorthic captain named Droktar. How many ships do you have in total? Droktar's insect-like features showed confusion. You defeated us so easily. Don't you already know our strength? Humor me, Parker replied. The Empire maintains approximately 8,000 vessels across all our conquered territories, Droktar answered. But most are garrison ships for controlling occupied populations. Parker made notes on his tablet. What about your main battle? Fleets? 3 primary fleets, each with roughly 1,000 ships. They rotate between sectors to maintain order and continue expansion. And you thought 50 ships would be enough to defeat us? Droktar looked genuinely puzzled. You're a young species. We expected you to surrender after a demonstration of our power. That's what every other species has done. Parker leaned back in his chair. Let me explain something to you, Captain. Humans don't surrender. We get angry. And when we get angry, we don't stop fighting until the threat is completely eliminated. The news of the human victory traveled faster than light across the galaxy. Species that had hidden from the Vorthic for decades suddenly began sending secret messages to Earth. The impossible had happened. Someone had not just defeated the Vorthic, but made it look easy. President Carter called another emergency meeting as reports flooded in from intelligence services across human space. 17 different species have contacted us in the past. Weak, reported Secretary Adams. They all want to know if we're serious about fighting the Vorthic Empire. What did you tell them? Carter asked. That we're very serious. Several are offering to share intelligence or provide bases for our operations. Admiral Morrison activated the main display, showing a map of Vorthic-controlled space. The Kepler battle was just the beginning. We've identified 12 major Vorthic military installations within 50 light-years of our current position. Recommendations? Carter asked. Hit them all simultaneously, Morrison replied without hesitation. Don't give them time to coordinate a response. Show the galaxy that the age of Vorthic dominance is over. General Thompson agreed. Our production lines are running at full capacity. We'll have 1,500 ships ready for operation within the month. Captain Zarathol, who had been quiet during most of the meeting, finally spoke. Madam President, there's something you need to understand about what you're doing. What's that, Captain? When my people first encountered the Vorthic, we tried to negotiate. When that failed, we tried to surrender. When they killed us anyway, we tried to run. You're the first species to try hunting them instead. Carter studied the alien captain's expression. Is that a problem? No, Zarathol replied, with something that might have been a smile. It's exactly what the galaxy has been waiting for. Every species that the Vorthic have conquered or threatened will rally to your cause once they see you can actually win. Morrison brought up new intelligence reports. The escaped Vorthic commander reached their nearest base 6 hours ago. Long range. Sensors show massive fleet movements throughout their territory. They're taking us seriously now. Good, Carter said firmly. It's time they learned what happens when you mess with people under human protection. The room fell silent as everyone contemplated what was coming. Humanity had crossed a line. They were no longer just defending themselves or providing sanctuary to refugees. They had declared war on the most powerful military force in the galaxy, and they were going to win. The war that had started with a desperate plea for help ended 18 months later in the chambers of the Galactic Council. Supreme Admiral Jake Morrison stood before representatives of 47 different species as Vorthic High Commander. Zekthal signed the official surrender documents. The Vorthic Empire agrees to immediate withdrawal from all occupied territories, Morrison read from the treaty. Full reparations will be paid to all victim species. Vorthic military forces will be reduced to planetary defense levels only, with human oversight of all operations. High Commander Zekthul's mandibles clicked in. What humans had learned was a sign of deep frustration. 6 months ago, he had commanded the largest military force in the galaxy. Now he was signing away everything his empire had built over 2 centuries of conquest. This is not over, Zekthul said quietly as he finished signing. Morrison looked at the alien commander with the same expression he might use for an annoying insect. Yes, it is. And if you try to start it again, we'll finish it permanently next. Time. The path to this moment had been brutal and efficient. After the victory at Kepler, human forces had systematically dismantled every Vorthic military installation within 100 light-years of Earth. The Vorthic had tried to mount counterattacks, but each battle ended the same way. Captain Steve Barnes had led the famous Ghost Fleet, a collection of captured Vorthic ships crewed by humans and Kethany volunteers. Seeing their own vessels attacking them had broken Vorthic morale faster than any weapon. The psychological impact was devastating. Arons had reported after the Battle of Rigel Prime. They spent more time trying to figure out which ships were really theirs than they did fighting us. The turning point had come when Colonel Sarah Mitchell led a joint task force that penetrated the heavily defended Vorthic home system. Instead of bombarding their worlds, the humans had done something the Vorthic never expected. They had broadcast a message to every Vorthic installation in the galaxy. The message was simple and delivered in perfect Vorthic language. Surrender now, or we will hunt down every ship, every base, and every outpost until your empire exists. Only in history books, you have 72 hours to decide. To emphasize their point, the human fleet had demonstrated their industrial capacity. In the 18 months since the war began, Earth's shipyards had produced over 5,000 military vessels. The rate of construction was something the Vorthic couldn't match even at the height of their power. General Amanda Foster had led the liberation of the Kethany colony worlds. The Vorthic defenders had expected long sieges, but human forces used coordinated orbital bombardment, simultaneous planetary assault, and most effectively, organized rebellions among the enslaved populations. We didn't just fight the Vorthic military, Foster had explained to the press. We armed every species they had oppressed and taught them how to fight back. By the end, we had all eyes on every world they controlled. The final battle hadn't been fought in space at all. It had been an economic war that strangled Vorthic supply lines across dozens of star systems. Human intelligence services had infiltrated their communication networks, disrupted their logistics, and turned their own bureaucracy against them. Dr. Maria Santos had played a crucial role in developing the technology that made victory possible. Working with her Kethany partner Veltar, she had created weapons and defensive systems that adapted to enemy tactics in real time. The Vorthic were used to fighting species with static technology, Santos had explained to a gathering of human and alien scientists. They would study an enemy's capabilities once and develop counters. Against us, their counters became obsolete before they could implement them. Now, as Morrison watched the surrender ceremony, he thought about how much had changed since Captain Zarathul's desperate message had first reached Earth. The Kethany refugees had found not just sanctuary, but a new home that was more secure than their original world had ever been. President Carter stepped forward to address the assembled representatives. This war began because one species asked for help and another species answered. It ends with a simple promise. Any species that threatens those under human protection will face the same fate as the Vorthic Empire. Ambassador Krill of the Centauri. Republic raised a tentative hand. President Carter, many of us are grateful for what humanity has accomplished. But we must ask, what are your intentions now? Will Earth seek to build its own empire? Carter's response was immediate and firm. We're not interested in conquering anyone. We're interested in making sure no one gets conquered again. Any species that wants our protection can have it. Any species that threatens our allies will regret it. The announcement sent ripples throughout the galaxy. Within days, 43 different species had requested formal alliance treaties with Earth. The age of Vorthic dominance was over, but something new was beginning. Captain Zarathul, now wearing the uniform of a Human Defense Force admiral, stood beside Morrison as the ceremony concluded. She thought about the journey that had brought her people from near extinction to honored allies of the galaxy's most powerful military force. Admiral Morrison, she said quietly, when we sent that first message asking for help, we expected maybe food and medicine. We never imagined this. Morrison smiled. You didn't just ask for help, Admiral. You trusted us with the lives of your people. That means something to humans. It means everything, actually. What happens now? She asked. Now we build something better, Morrison replied. The Galactic Council has been nothing but a debating society for centuries. It's time for an organization that actually protects its members. over the following months. The Human Defense Alliance was established with Earth as its headquarters and Admiral Morrison as its first Supreme Commander. The Alliance's charter was simple. Member species would contribute what they could to mutual defense, and in return, they would never have to face extinction alone. The Kethany became the Alliance's first member species, followed quickly by the survivors of worlds the Vorthic had devastated. Within a year, the Alliance included over 60 species and controlled the largest military force in galactic history. The former Vorthic territories were redistributed to their original inhabitants or to refugee populations that needed new homes. The Vorthic themselves were allowed to keep their homeworld and a few nearby systems. But under strict supervision, Dr. Peter Hayes established the Alliance Science Division, where human and alien researchers worked together to develop new technologies. The combination of human engineering with alien sciences produced advances that benefited every member species. Colonel Frank Miller founded the Alliance Military Academy, where officers from dozens of species learned to fight as a unified force. The Academy's motto became famous throughout the galaxy: "No one fights alone." As President Carter stood in the newly constructed Alliance headquarters on Luna, watching ships from 40 different species patrol the space around Earth, she reflected on how a simple act of humanitarian aid had transformed the galaxy. The Kethany refugees had asked for help. Humanity had responded with total war against their oppressors. But more than that, humans had responded with total commitment to ensuring it never happened again. Captain Zarathol joined her at the observation window. "President Carter, I've been wondering about something. Why did humanity do all this for? You could have given us sanctuary and left it at that." Carter watched a Kethany bioship flying in formation with human cruisers. "Because that's who we are, Admiral. When someone asks us for help, we don't just solve their immediate problem. We make sure the problem never happens to anyone else." In the depths of space, construction crews were building New Kethan, a world designed specifically for the Kethany refugees. It would be protected by the largest defense grid ever constructed, ensuring that the Kethany would never again face extinction. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would echo through the centuries. When humanity offered protection, they meant it completely. The age of conquest was over. The age of human guardianship had begun. And somewhere in the Alliance archives, the original message from Captain Zarathol was preserved as a reminder of how everything had started. A desperate plea for help that had become the foundation of galactic peace.